Ryuga and Brooklyn. These two names always stand at the absolute center of the debate whenever the Beyblade fandom discusses the strongest blader in the entire franchise. On one side is the Dragon Emperor, Ryuga, the unstoppable force of the Metal Saga. From Metal Fusion to Metal Fury, Ryuga constantly evolved, breaking past every limit and redefining power scaling with every battle. On the other side stands Brooklyn, the King of Darkness and the final boss of the original Beyblade series. Brooklyn wasn't just strong, he was terrifying. A prodigy so naturally gifted that he never needed hard work to stand above everyone else, his unnatural connection with his bit beast left veteran bladers looking completely helpless. So, what happens when these two monsters collide? Can the Dragon Emperor completely overwhelm the final boss of the OG era? Or will the King of Darkness drag Ryuga into an inescapable abyss? Today, we're going in-depth into their feats and power scaling to find the definitive answer. Let's dive in. Let's start with Ryuga and what made him a legendary force. What separated Ryuga from almost every other character was his constant evolution. Across Metal Fusion, Metal Masters, and Metal Fury, he continuously ascended to entirely new echelons of power. Back in Metal Fusion, Ryuga claimed the Forbidden Bay, Meteo L-Drago. As a Dark Bay, it absorbed negative emotions like anger, greed, lust, and hatred, converting them into a dark power that amplified both the Bay and its wielder. However, that power came with a deadly price: lose control, and the darkness would consume your will, turning you into a vessel for destruction. Ryuga was no exception, becoming a tyrant driven purely by domination. The sheer scale of his strength at this stage was immense. Multiple statements imply that the final clash between Ginka and Ryuga possessed enough power to threaten the entire planet. But Ryuga's true evolution began after his defeat. Once freed from L-Drago's control, he vowed never to be controlled again. He underwent brutal training in isolation, even inside an active volcano, to dominate L-Drago's dark power. When he returned in Metal Masters, his power had leaped from a planetary threat to a cosmic scale, evolving his Bay into Meteo L-Drago. In the narrative, being one with the cosmos represents an astronomical shift. The cosmos isn't just a planet, it's the entirety of space, galaxies, and the universe. Crucially, Ryuga achieved this through pure willpower. L-Drago was no longer controlling him. It became an extension of his own power. The resulting Meteo L-Drago was absurdly broken. It could absorb rotational force directly from opposing bays, stealing their spin mid-battle and converting it into Ryuga's own strength. The longer the battle lasted, the stronger Ryuga became, making him a walking natural disaster that constantly evolved during combat. Before we analyze Brooklyn, we need to address a major misconception: the idea that the original Beyblade series operated on a much lower power scale than the Metal Saga. That simply isn't true. To understand Brooklyn's true level, we have to look back at the Season 1 final battle between Tyson and Tala. Empowered by a combination of bit beasts, Tala collided head-on with Tyson in a clash so violent it was stated to fracture space and time, trapping both bladers in another dimension. This feat is supported across the English dub, Japanese sub, and official guidebooks. From a power scaling perspective, fracturing the space-time continuum goes far beyond physical destruction. It requires energy that interacts with the very fabric of reality. Interestingly, the Metal Saga didn't showcase this level of dimensional manipulation until the late stages of Metal Masters through Faust. Furthermore, the Tyson and Tala responsible for that Season 1 feat were nowhere near their peak. By G-Revolution, both grew exponentially stronger through the hard metal system. Yet, despite this massive growth, a veteran like Tala was still completely outclassed by the new era of Beygabladers. And standing effortlessly at the apex of that era was Brooklyn. Brooklyn's terror lay in how unnatural his abilities were. He didn't rely on specialized system upgrades like spin gears, engine gears, or the HMS system. Using a basic Beyblade, his raw talent and synchronization with Zeus allowed him to effortlessly dominate elite bladers. During his battle against Kai, Brooklyn demonstrated adaptive mimicry, instantly copying Kai's movements and advanced techniques. He could even synchronize with and mirror emotions. When Kai drew power from his passion, unleashing attacks portrayed with galactic imagery, Brooklyn adapted instantly, mirroring that emotional amplification with even greater cosmic power. Then there is Zeus's most terrifying attribute, the creation of black hole. Instead of a standard physical strike, Brooklyn generated gravitational distortions that absorbed surrounding energy and neutralized incoming attacks. By his final battle against Tyson, Brooklyn's power escalated to an apocalyptic scale. He destroyed the arena, warped reality, generated multiple pocket dimensions, and triggered global natural disasters. Zeus was manifesting the chaos within Brooklyn's fractured heart directly into reality, meaning his emotional instability became a literal threat to the planet. Fighting Brooklyn wasn't just a Beyblade match, it was a battle against an adaptive force capable of rewriting reality. So, who wins this battle? In Metal Masters, Ryuga was a near unstoppable cosmic threat. His spin-stealing ability and heavy offensive pressure turned every direct collision into a nightmare. He was rarely pushed, often holding back to test opponents before ending matches with a single finishing blow. However, when compared directly to Brooklyn, the matchup shifts. Some argue that because El-Drago is a left-rotating bay, Brooklyn would struggle. But Tyson used a left-rotating bay from day one, meaning elite bladers of the OG era were completely accustomed to facing left rotation. When it comes to close-range combat, Brooklyn possesses the perfect counter to Ryuga's spin-stealing aggression. Zeus can project black hole distortions to destabilize an opponent's momentum from a distance, making it incredibly difficult for El-Drago to maintain balance or secure the physical contact it needs to steal spin. This dynamic becomes even clearer when we look at Faust and Twisted Tempo, the peak of Metal Masters. Powered by the Spiral Force reactor, Faust could generate the Spiral Dimension, a localized black hole where he controlled space and time. This system was so devastating that its malfunction threatened the planet. Jinka and Masamune couldn't pierce Faust's defenses solo, requiring Ryuga to step in and attack the reactor core directly. Yet, Brooklyn operates on an even higher conceptual level than Faust. Faust required an entire technological infrastructure and an external reactor to stabilize his dimensional power. Brooklyn generated black holes and alternate dimensions naturally, using nothing but his own synchronization with Zeus. In a literal clash, Ryuga would immediately pressure Brooklyn with relentless, heavy attacks, attempting to force direct contact for spin absorption. But Brooklyn's greatest asset is his adaptive battle IQ. Realizing El-Drago thrives on physical contact, Brooklyn would avoid close-range brawling. Just as he did against Kai, Brooklyn would begin creating black hole-like distortions around the stadium, destabilizing El-Drago's rotation while gradually dragging it toward the center of the distortion. Ryuga possesses immense raw power, but to see how he fares against reality-warping fields, we have to look at how he handled Faust. The malfunctioning spiral force was so massive that Ryuga and Jinka had to work together to stop it. Ryuga used Meteo L-Drago to suppress the engine's energy output, while Jinka flew Pegasus into space to discharge the remaining power before it destroyed Earth. If it took a combined effort to neutralize Faust's machine-made dimension, Ryuga attempting to overpower Brooklyn's self-sustained reality-warping field completely on his own is a massive uphill battle. Even if Ryuga managed to shatter a distortion solo, El-Drago would enter the late game severely drained of stamina. At that exact moment of vulnerability, Brooklyn would seize the opening and unleash his ultimate attack, King of Darkness. With that final blow, Brooklyn claims the victory. Metal Masters Ryuga remains a dominant force, but Brooklyn and Zeus operate on a level of dimensional and conceptual manipulation beyond anything shown in the first two seasons of the Metal Saga. However, this debate isn't over. Meteo L-Drago wasn't Ryuga's final form. In Metal Fury, he became a legendary blader, and El-Drago evolved into El-Drago Destroy. Will that ultimate divine upgrade be enough to finally dethrone the King of Darkness? We'll find out in the next video, so stay tuned.